All right, I think it's 12:01. I'll go ahead and get started while people are signing in. Um, Thank you, everybody. This is the January 12th, 2021 first CDF meetup of 2021. We have a very interesting speaker today. Uh, Deborah, I met Deborah through a LinkedIn chat. I know some of you I've met through LinkedIn chats because I'm not shy about asking for a coffee chat and talking about where you are in microservices and what you're doing. And I'm not a Scrum Master, and I really, I understand Agile practices, but I've never really studied it. And we started getting in a conversation with Deborah about what she called the Agile Mindset and how that relates to microservices. And I had such a good time talking to her. We laughed, we had fun. I thought she'd be a great intro for 2021 and kicking off our talks for this year. Everybody should know Deborah is doing this on her birthday, so happy birthday to you, Deborah.
Thank you.
And we do have as people who have been on these CDF meetups, I usually try to coordinate between, I schedule a kind of a human of DevOps talk, and then I do a technical talk, and then I do something related to humans or project management. So next month, we are going to learn about Kepton. Kepton, as everybody may know, is a event-based CD tool. It has a very interesting control plane, and it's a very different approach to the CD pipeline, which I'm looking forward to seeing it. Andreas, I think his last name is Grabner, maybe I should be looking at this, from Dynatrace, who is their, I would call him one of their evangelists, and he knows Kepton very well. He's been involved in that project since the start. He is going to be presenting Kepton to us, so please join. It is going to be held on, let me look really quick. Let me just pull this up while we're waiting. It is February 17th, same time. And he will be doing, I believe he'll be doing a presentation as well as a demo. So on that, I want to let everybody know, if you're on, I have allowed you to talk, so you can keep yourself muted. That would be great. But if you have a question for Deborah along the way, she has, opened it up so that you can just say, hey, Deborah, wait a second, I'm not clear on this. And you'll find that she will be very willing to answer your questions and probably dive into an aspect you weren't thinking about. So on that, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah. And Deborah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, my name's Deborah Chaskin. I started out as a system engineer, then did project management, then I went into the Agile world. Right now, I just started a contract with Verizon as a product owner and some project management pieces. And I'm also consider myself an artist, and we're all multi-dimensional. And I'm so happy that I met Tracy because she's helped me, and I'm here giving a presentation, fearlessly giving a presentation on microservices and the Agile mindset. And as I was coming up with this talk, I came up with a saying. So I'm so glad I wrote this talk because I got a new saying for myself. And it says, sometimes your willingness to change your mindset can be the source of your joy. And take that with microservices and take that in your life. So I love looking at dictionaries for definitions because you kind of have to get at the root of something to understand it. So what is the Agile mindset? Well, it's two words, Agile and mindset. Now, mindset, the second one, is an attitude. And as we know, the attitude we bring into our lives is the attitude that's going to reflect other people's impressions of us. It's going to reflect our output no matter what we're doing. Agile, well, it started out that Agile, the original definition, is the ability to move quick and easily. But then these guys got together and they talked about project management and they tried to model it after Agile. So I like images. So I think of Agile as certain animals are agile and other animals aren't agile. So for example, a cougar is very agile because it can run quick, okay? A beaver is very agile because a beaver doesn't work with large pieces. A beaver likes to break down pieces into smaller pieces, like user stories, instead of a large bunch of requirements. Bees are definitely agile because they swarm together. You've got a problem, your code's not working. Okay, we're in this together. Everybody get on the meeting. I don't want to send a formal invite, just be here and I'll give you a demo and you point out what's wrong and we're all going to put our brains together and not judge each other. We're swarming like bees, okay? Dragonflies are agile because they can fly in different directions, right, left, backwards, forwards. And we have to do that so many times. We have to undo what we did. We have to admit that we're showing a half-baked demo and it's not smoke and mirrors. It's that I'm just building it and the queries don't work because we haven't put the data in and pieces like that. So, you know, always go back to the animals. Now, who isn't agile in the animal world? And I like this, but you kind of use comedy to get over the frustrations that you're in a situation that people are there that don't tend to be agile. Well, human beings are somewhere in between. They're not super agile and they're not totally unagile because human beings can be greedy or they can be generous. They can have all sorts of skills. So the animals that I think we don't want to be like is the elephant, because nobody talks about the elephant in the room. We want to discuss the issues and the elephant is big. So the elephant could be broken into smaller pieces if the beaver came along, but you don't want to don't want to say, okay, I'm going to code an elephant of stuff for this release and you're going to miss your release train when it's time to deliver. So that's this view graph. You guys, you're not interrupting me if you want to say something, but I will have an exercise for you. So the Agile Mindset. Okay, the Agile Mind, there's this guy named Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Buddhist monk, but I learned a lot from him. I did a silent meditation retreat with him. And the whole idea was the ceremonies. When you go to the Agile ceremonies, don't think that, oh, this is a bunch of whatever, and I don't want to go through this, and it's a waste of my time. It's kind of like doing the dishes, okay? When you do the dishes, most people don't like to do the dishes, but some people just enjoy it. They're in the present moment, and they're cleaning the dishes, and they're not just thinking about the cup of tea they'll have when this mess is cleaned up. So you're wasting your life if you're sitting in ceremonies and you're not wanting to participate or express, because that's your time. And if you chose the job, then enjoy that time and see the humor in the stuff that doesn't work. So, okay, here's that guy I said I liked. He says, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. So the whole idea of the Agile mindset is also that you want to have a state of being more than a state of doing. So just because you've ran like your daily calls every day and you've had retrospectives for every sprint and you had sprint planning meetings, etc., that's just going through the motion. You're being agile when you earnestly want to work as a team and you communicate and you're there when people need you. So I'm a proponent of being agile and not necessarily doing everything to the letter T. So why do we care about agile, okay? How does this relate to microservices? Well, microservices are the last mile of agile, because I'll talk a little bit about the Agile Manifesto, but the whole idea is that it's the last mile because a lot of the pieces that needed to be done were never considered when the whole ideas of agile were conceived, because operations, for example, was not there in the early planning stage when they wrote the Agile Manifesto. So here we are, and we realize we have something so powerful with all these like super intelligent people who can code and create these microservice standalone services that can be used across multiple organizations and can automate so much that now, how do we integrate it into something that not even the ceremonies totally tell you what your role is, because you might not even have a role on the Scrum team. So we really want to integrate the two now to get that last mile right, because we want to benefit by the Agile approach, because I'll go over that later, but it's needed to do Agile and not just waterfall. So we're in it together attitude would really help here. So an Agile mindset is more a state of being than a state of doing. And it's going to work best if everybody buys into the mindset. So like Thich Nhat Hanh says, just smile and you'll be happy. Just try it. Just try it. Like your green eggs and ham or whatever. So the whole idea is that I'm not going to go on this slides too quickly, but the Agile Manifesto, it's actually coming up on its 20th anniversary, February 11th to 13th. Where 17 software developers met at a resort, and they went skiing in Colorado, and they tried to come up with some lightweight development practices. And that was good, and they came up with some very good ideas, but no operations were present there. And in fact, there were no women there. So I think that us women should go and help them edit the manifesto now, but that's just my opinion. So you could read about this. You're welcome to share these slides with them if they'd like. Anybody have anything to say yet?
This is Steve. Do you think the manifesto still holds true from when it was written 20 years ago?
To some extent, yes, and some extent, no. Just like what we're going through now, the Constitution holds, but we're testing its limits. So I would say that some of it, you take everything with a grain of salt. But if somebody is writing that and there's been trying it over the past 20 years, some of it's working, some of it's not. And it's up to us not to be rigid, but to take the good parts and not like throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's how I see it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Now, Agile Values, they have a list of the Agile Values, and the whole idea is that if the team can kind of arrive at the same values, they can have a shared mindset, and teams are much more powerful when they have shared mindsets. So the 4 basic characteristics to the shared mindset are individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. Now, that doesn't mean we throw our processes and tools in the garbage. I mean, I need UML diagrams when I'm seeing what somebody wants to build, or I won't understand the big picture. But the individuals and the interactions are what really help. Like, for example, I started a new job, and I am not learning the system as quick as I would like to. And I could look at the processes and the tools, but if I have a good relationship with the individuals there, they're going to show me how to use it hands-on. We're going to have those meetings and those interactions, and we're going to be more agile and get more stuff done, because no person is an island. Second value is that working software over comprehensive documentation. And I believe that's true. I believe that you need some documentation, but you can use visuals, or if you feel that you need even more documentation, you could create like test scenarios and show that they work in a demo. But working software is the ultimate goal. So that doesn't mean have no documentation. It just means don't be anal about it. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Now, I think that's very, very valuable. In fact, I apply those values to my waterfall projects. I was working with the Department of Transportation to move their traffic lights over to AT&T's network. And it was so important that I got along well with the Department of Transportation and everybody else in Queens, in New York City, because I had to collaborate and things would change. So nobody would pick at the contract. People pick at their contracts and look for SLA requirements that you don't meet when you haven't built the relationship. But when you show that you're earnest and you want to deliver, people more care about, having a good relationship with the customer, because the customer is the one that's going to drive the business requirements. And they might or they might not know what they're doing, but they're struggling too on their side of the end. So that's part of it. And then the next one is responding to change over following a plan. And that's so true when it comes to microservices, because you have so many items changing. And you change your microservice, you're changing multiple customers, not just one. So any questions on the values here? Okay. I'm not going to go through all the principles, but these are the principles, okay? In the interest of time, I'm going to skip it. But if somebody wants to ask me a question, they're more than welcome to email me.
Deborah, this is Tracy. The question I would ask is, in those 12 principles, are there any that you think are less important now with microservices? Or
Yes.
Are there some that are more important now?
That's a very good point. I think the first one's very important. Customer satisfaction by early and continuous deliverable of valuable software, because that's basically telling you that you've got to make sure that the majority of your customers are going to be positively impacted by your changes. So that's why it's important to have the relationships with them also, because if you make one change and you take a major client and tick them off, you're not going to be happy. So I think that's a big one. Let me go through each one of them. The next one's welcome changing requirements even late in development. That is something that is really important to have to do before you roll something out to deployment. But sometimes you need to kind of, in my opinion, sometimes you have to delay it because it could have negative impacts on other clients. So this is like something that's, you got to negotiate, and you still, in my opinion, you try to minimize this scenario by doing something up front, just because of all your dependencies. So you want to keep a track and documentation of what all your microservices have in terms of their dependencies. So if you have one person wanting to move the cheese, it doesn't move someone else's cheese in the other direction. So that, I think, requires more planning. Delivering working software frequently, I think that's what you guys excel at, and that microservices enable you to do that because of reuse. Close daily cooperation between business people and developers, I think that's very important, because they're funding you, first of all. It's a major reason. And you want to know what their needs are, because you're the one who can help them. Projects are built around motivated individuals. I think senior management needs to hear about this more. We can motivate people with our attitudes, but if somebody's just like a worker bee, like I am, I can motivate people because I'm fun to be with and this and that, but I can't change them. But senior management should focus on this no matter what project they're working on. Face-to-face conversation, we all know we can't do that with COVID, unfortunately. So Zoom is here. So we do the best we can. Working software is the primary measure of progress. I don't know. Does anybody here think if this is important to microservices? Because I don't know how important it is.
Well, I think it's important, but I think it's more challenging to sort that out. If you're an API microservice developer and you have a pretty big blast radius, if you deploy your microservice, that may be a more difficult principle to meet.
Okay, that's good. She knows this stuff. I'm not an expert in microservices in any way. Sustainable development, able to maintain a constant pace. That's basically the idea that you don't want to burn out, so you should know your team's velocity. Like, you should know how much work it really takes for you to do all the stuff you commit to, and that you don't want to do more than you can or you'll like die. It'll be too much. Or Stacy knows you have a horse, right? So you know how much you can expect your horse to run, right?
Oh, sorry.
So,
Yes.
yes. So the next one is continuous attention to technical excellence and good design. I don't know what do you, I think that's important, but I don't know how much more important it is for microservices. Next is simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. I think that's important in whatever you do. You don't want to create more work for yourself. And I'm the type of person who always creates more work for myself because something seems interesting. I want to solve world hunger, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's always important to know your minimal viable product. And when you deal with microservices, you need to know your minimal viable product. And that is what the bare minimal is that you have to deliver before you start putting cherries on the pie. Best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. I think that is important. I don't know how important it is in microservices because the teams might not always know what the management is committing to for other microservices. So you might need to depend on management to some extent and depend on whatever dependencies you already have documented. Regularly, the team reflects on how to be more effective and adjusts accordingly. That's true for whatever you do in life. All right, this is the exercise. We can do it. If you want, you can get out a piece of paper. You could just tell me what's coming in your mind. And I want you to describe the thoughts you have that enable you to maintain an agile mindset. And then the thoughts that might discourage you. And you don't have to share this, it's up to you. And then you can rewrite your thoughts that discourage you. Because that's how you change your mind. It's called cognitive therapy. I know that because I have an app that I paid for, but now they took it off of the database in my phone, and it helps me change my thoughts when I have the thoughts that don't serve me. And it's not going to serve the team if anybody's discouraged, and it doesn't disturb yourself. It doesn't serve you either. So here are examples. I'll show you what other people had, and you could do this on your own time. A discouraging thought might be, I don't want to hear a lot of people bragging or griping on daily calls. You could change that and say, I'll try my best not to brag or gripe. This might help improve the team's velocity. I'll just do one more and I can save these for you. I would like some upfront planning or a game book. So you could say, okay, well, I'm having a resistance to Agile because I think we need to document something or we need to have planning. So then it's a matter of reminding yourself that Agile also involves planning. Because, you know, like we're literal people. I mean, none of us would be in this industry if we're not literal. I mean, I'm more in a big picture level, but I'm literal too, just trust me. So when we looked at the analogies and they're not all or nothing thinking. So Agile involves planning too. For repetitive work, we can use more of a waterfall approach. All right, I'll just do the last two. People deliberately inflate their team's velocity to look good. And that's true. A lot of managers do that. They want to like take Agile and they want to take the practices and try to use it to get more out of somebody where they're burning them out. And the supporting thought is not everyone inflates their team velocity. Perhaps others may not understand the quickest way to deliver. We cannot change other people except by changing our own mindset. Actually, I should put this in my refrigerator. So. Next discouraging thought. We can never trust code that comes out of operations. Supporting thought, because that's all or nothing thinking also. A supporting thought is, how can we build our trust of code for integration? And this might be a good topic to discuss at the next retrospective, because people have retrospectives as part of the Agile practices, and they examine what they do and what they might change and what they might want to do better.
So it seems like your discouraging thoughts are, like you said, more all or nothing type of thoughts. Is that the way to look at it?
Yeah, actually, when I ran that app, which I missed greatly, I wish someone would write another one for me. That's one of it. It's all or nothing thinking. But if you read about cognitive therapy, there's a lot of dysfunctional thinking. There's like my son told me yesterday that I don't know. He was in Taiwan and a bus ran over his phone, his smartphone that I bought for him. So he's telling me this, and I'm having a thought like a bus is going to run him over tomorrow. And it's taking a problem and making it bigger than it really is. And if you look at, there's a guy who I have some good books on it. If you want to get in touch with me, I can give you the name of the authors, but it'll help. The app would have you pick what type of thought you had and change it. And it was very helpful, and I don't have the app anymore.
Thank you.
Did that help? I hope
Yep.
so. Okay, Agile and microservices. Why Agile for microservices? And what I have here is microservices requires production of small modules that provide valuable services. So remember we said it was small? Well, that's good because Agile is like small modules. Microservices are highly innovative. Agile practices encourage innovation. So you guys have a lot of talent. You can be at the cutting edge of technology, and Agile practices are much better for people in the cutting edge of technology because you don't want to be on something where you have an idea and you can't code it for another 6-7 months. Microservices are good at adapting quickly to ever-changing needs, and they're reusable. Legacy systems need to be quickly automated with microservices. So I've seen that you could take something like a dead system and you can use some of the microservices that you wrote and have it do ordering or ticketing or incident management, or it could do whatever. I wish it could do my dishes, even though I'm supposed to do them mindfully, but you could do that. Agile works well with quick deliveries. And you know, the way in this world, everybody wants something tomorrow. Agile supports collaboration and cross-functional teams. And in microservices, since what you do is used by so many people, you need something where you're not just collaborating with one customer, you're collaborating with tons and tons of customers. So you need these techniques so that you can like win in the game of microservices. Now, microservices are loosely coupled with what makes it easy to integrate with Agile. You've got the tools in place to do that too. With smaller services and less code, there can be shorter build times and testing. So the continuous delivery, I guess. The power of reuse can and will be leveraged. Agile and microservices require the breakdown of silos. And what silos are organizations that have barriers up against them. Or you could go into like a stable and you'll see every single horse separate in its own silo. Agile methods have been proven to work with continuous delivery projects. Any questions here?
On the collaboration, what have you seen that's been coming out that makes it the easiest way to collaborate? You know, because you're talking across multiple, not only your team now, but across, multiple teams in the organization.
It depends on what now you want to address the second part or the first part? The first part, that what makes it easy to collaborate for like the development team would be like the daily calls, because you want to find out what your obstacles are and what obstacles you might want to remove. Now, you said that, how do you communicate on a larger basis? There's a technique called Scaled Agile Framework. The acronym is SAFE, and it actually is used to communicate when your project has impacts on other projects in the same release. And they have this whole idea of the release train engineer, which is like it's like a level above a Scrum Master, like a release train engineers to a Scrum Master, what a program manager might be to a project manager. And what you need to do is, the developers might not have to worry about all the main details. Let the release train engineer worry about it if the organization is structured to handle it, because you could bring up the obstacles, or the business could change it into business language that shows what is impacting you. But that's how you, and then the Scaled Agile Framework is how I think might help microservices. But microservices would have to engage operations in that, and they would have to possibly be involved with an Agile project management office, because they do have project management offices for Agile, where you would communicate that you've got this microservice. And that's a good way for you to market what your deliverables are also, because if you have a microservice that you developed, you don't have to spend all your time, if, like I can't write a lot of code, so you don't have to spend all your time having to be the person who does it, but you need to have a contact that you can go to in the organization and make them aware of what you created. And then you have a better chance of, if you have a performance review, writing that you delivered something that helped many organizations. You have more visibility. And if you take it to the project management office, you let them worry about it. Let it be their problem. You just tell them what the dependencies are.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, okay, I made this thing up, so hopefully it'll work. This is an example of IT and the business creating a platform using microservices to support all key processes across a company, okay? So this platform will enable reuse, collaboration, and a sense of trust for the code created. So this might be like almost like an architecture drawing for Scaled Agile Framework. I just grabbed what I call ITEL functions, which are like in a system from a business perspective. You've got billing, you've got ordering, you've got ticketing. You could have a common database, you have reporting over here. And this organization might be feeding these little critters. Each one of these little critters might be drilled down into smaller microservices. And this guy might have a need for the microservices that he's using to make some changes to their billing. This guy might want some changes done to ticketing. This one might want some changes done to reporting. And this one might want some changes done to ordering. But they can't just change it unless they coordinate with the organizations and get their approval. So this is kind of like the business architecture drawing of something that would be Scaled Agile Framework. Is that okay? Any questions? Because I made it up, but.
No, looks good.
Thank you. Agile, what is a silo and why break them down? Silos are about separation. Keeping everything just for me, myself, and I. But microservices and Agile are all about sharing. Agile really is all about sharing when it's done right. It really is. And I'm sure microservices is also. So that's the beauty of it. So remember that thought when you get driven crazy by Agile or microservices. When there is an endless supply, the need for silos goes away. And this is something that Tracy taught me, because I don't know much about microservices, but we're going to stay tuned to learn how microservices produce an infinite supply. The challenges are in the integration and breaking down the silos. Oh, the toy analogy, we came up with this. If you got more questions, she could elaborate it more for microservices. But I was telling her when I first met Tracy that, like in the old days, children fought over playing with particular toys and colors. Like, I want the red block, I want the blue block. My brother wouldn't let me touch his G.I. Joe doll. I didn't like the Barbie doll, but he wouldn't let me touch his G.I. Joe doll. And in the old days, organizations fought over stuff like, oh, I want that funding. No, I want that computer. I want that docking station. Microservices makes it possible to reuse code across many systems and services. I guess you guys do your magic and you clone whatever you can clone with the software. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. When we learn to embrace an agile mindset, we all become richer. And if our country could think like this, imagine what a world this would be. See this beautiful little girl there? And this is the FisherPrice Kitchen Set. I love the FisherPrice Kitchen Set because my first son, it was his favorite toy. And he would let me play with everything, and except for the strawberry pink one topping of the cupcake. But with microservices, you can clone all of these. And there's an endless supply. So just clone more of them. I think that is the ending to the talk.
Well, Deborah, thank you. That was quite entertaining. It makes me think about a lot of things.
Thank you.
And it's pretty cool that you got to go do a meditation with Teach Not Han. It's pretty cool.
He was amazing. He was sitting at, the kids were up on the podium with him, and all of a sudden, my son was confused. He was young at the time, like he was like preschool. He didn't know how to act. So he wound up, because the monks were singing, so he stood up and he started imitating the monks singing, but it looked like he was mocking them. So Thich Nhat Hanh sat next to him and he put his hands between held his hands like this. And after that, everybody broke their silence and started laughing.
How could you not?
Yeah.
Well, I've never thought about, putting, kind of Buddhist concepts into a discussion around Agile. So thank you for making that connection for me.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. It helps me.
So there's some who would like to get your book list for your cognitive behavior.
I will get that. I have it. Well, actually,
so
I got
what I'll do is, if anybody wants that, just give me your email, send me push your email through the chat. You don't want to share your email to everybody, I understand, so just send it directly to me, and I will send the list to Deborah, and then she can forward that book list to the folks that would like it.
Yeah, and if I can find, I wish I had that app. It was great, right on my smartphone. So you guys could program it in half an hour, I'm sure, but I can't.
We'll make it out of microservices.
And
Yes.
everybody who's on the call is able to talk. So if you want to ask her a question or chat at all, just unmute yourself and ask away.
This is Steve again. Do you think organizations are starting to break down the silos, or are they still pretty stuck in that mindset of this is mine, you can't have it?
That's a great question. I see it in pockets of companies. They do try to break down the silos because they don't have a choice. But what they usually do is they rearrange the silos later. They go in and out because we're not there yet.
Yeah, because I remember we used to go through centralized, decentralized forever. It would become cyclical, and then I've seen where you had products were siloed and then they get unsiloed into business units and then they get siloed back. So that's why I was curious where we were in this time of in the process.
It depends on the company. A company, because I've consulted to a bunch of companies, like Zebra, which was part of Motorola, they spun off and they would not be like that. They would share with each other. Honeywell has a lot of good values and they can do Agile. Even though they did waterfall in my project, they brought the Agile values to waterfall.
I think that's how most people have implemented Agile. So as we move away from monolithic and into microservices, I think we're going to have some basic challenges. Just even, well, I think it's going to force people to take that Agile mindset. For example, even architecting a microservice solution. It's going to require you get people in the room to talk to each other, to collaborate, and to not hold their toys so close to their chest, so to speak.
That's nice. I think the way it's going to be changed is when people realize that when senior management starts modeling it and they put it as part of people's performance review and stuff. I think it'll change that way.
That's an interesting point.
So you'll get evaluated on how well you share with others?
Yep.
Very interesting. Maybe something we can add to the Artilius open source project. You know, how many microservices an individual contributed, and then how shared they are.
That's a great idea. You got the metric and everything. That's
awesome.
We'll have to play as well with others tag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that adding stars and whatnot to, you know, how people like microservices is a good way to do that as well. Kind of like, you know, GitHub.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, good. Deborah, thank you so very much. If anybody has any other questions for Deborah, please ask them now. Otherwise, we will sign up and we will see everybody in February and learn about Kepton and control planes and event-driven continuous delivery. Kepton is part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the CNCF, which is a sister organization to the CD Foundation. We're both under the Linux Foundation, so they're family.
Awesome. Have a very good afternoon.
You too.
And
Thank you so much.
have a great birthday.
Thank you. Oh, God, I hope so. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
My pleasure.
Bye.